Alex Shuriket presents my very emotional parody audiobook, Steamgelion! Roles played by Соня Иванов, Синзи Икари,
Marina Kalina,
Misato Katsuragi, Rimaka Gage, Ritsuko Akagi, Commander Ivanov, Gendo Ikari, Raya Enama, Rei Ayanami,
Hanka Litvinenko,
Asuka Langley, Ali Katzman, Aida Kensuke, Toya Suzuhara, Todzi Suzuhara,
Roma Kazi,
Ryuji Kazi. First season, episode 18. The night was drawing near. On the secret platform, illuminated by lanterns from which the Soyuz AG began its short journey, it was deserted, because the entire army that was here rushed for the Soyuz AG as for only object of protection. Abandoned armored trains stood alone on the tracks. And the unfortunate flagship armored train, the shape of which was pretty much changed by the robot stepping on it twice, was among them. Suddenly, from somewhere behind one of the trains, two railway linemen in bright vests appeared. On the shoulder of one of the men was a sledgehammer, while the other carried a crowbar and a huge wrench. On the badge of the first was written Mihailich, and on the badge of the second, Nikonorich. Passing by the flagship, Mihailich noticed.
Nikonorich, look how damaged it is! It looks like we were bringing something for Gennady!
Nikonorich nodded in understanding, and then the Caucasian voice was heard from the crushed compartment. Help us! The linemen were worried. When Mihailich rubbed his fist on the crumpled armored shutter of the window and asked,
Who's there?
Soviet people! Hurry, dear friend! Mihailich nodded and said,
Nikonorich, come on!
Resolutely getting down to business, the linemen quickly unbent the armor plate and freed the prisoners of the crumpled compartment. And as soon as freedom became available, Comrade Kalina, Comrade Agevich and the colonel rushed to the nearest bushes like bullets. After returning from there, they looked around.
What happened here?
Asked Mihailich, sniffing the air with some envy.
we would like to know that too.
Comrade Kalina answered.
Didn't you see anything?
We've just returned.
Comrade Agevich shook her almost sober head and said,
When the Grunker needs to be contacted. Comrade Colonel, where can I find a transmitter?
The best transmitter was in my flagship.
answered the colonel with anguish, looking at the dead armored train.
From other trains, I have no keys. Why?
Oh, well, okay, but at least where's a telephone on this station?
Mihailich adjusted the sledgehammer and said,
Yes, there is. Why not? Come on, follow me, beauty.
Mihailich and Nikonorich went somewhere and Comrade Kalina and Comrade Agevich followed them. Glancing at the colonel who remained standing, Comrade Agevich wanted to say something to him, but he waved his hand and sadly asked,
Leave me alone, please.
And after that, he began to gently stroke the damaged armor. Comrade Kalina and Comrade Agevich did not insist. Soon, a payphone was discovered. Mihailich and Nikonorich went on their way.
Do you have 2 kopecks?
Comrade Kalina asked, fumbling in her pockets.
Here, take it.
Comrade Agevich answered, holding out a coin on a thread to her friend.
Oh, my Kremlin rim!
Comrade Kalina said reproachfully, looking at the coin.
What a disgrace! Are you saying money for a car or what?
For an apartment.
Comrade Agevich angrily muttered.
Take it.
Taking the coin, Comrade Kalina defiantly tore off the thread from it and threw the coin into the telephone. Having dialed the required phone number, she cleared his throat in a businesslike manner. The beeps quickly changed to the voice of Comrade Ivanov. Commander Ivanov speaking.
Commander, this is a senior
Come
lieutenant.
here immediately! Having received such a terrible answer, Comrade Kalina swallowed and slowly hung up the phone, apprehensively said,
Listen, Rima. In my opinion, he is dissatisfied with something.
Comrade Agage pulled back the collar of her shirt and thought aloud.
I hope not with us.
Fortunately for the ladies, the track with they got here in was still standing in its place. And therefore soon Comrade Agage and Comrade Kalina were already on their way back. As expected, all roads were blocked by endless military checkpoints, and therefore the ladies reached Moscow City only at 4 in the morning. They rode without losing the traces of the escaped robot from the line of sight. And suddenly, Comrade Agage noticed something, grabbed Comrade Kalina by the sleeve and yelled, "Stop!" Comrade Kalina pressed the brakes, and as soon as the truck stopped, she asked,
What happened?
With her trembling hand, Comrade Agage pointed somewhere to the right, speechless. Comrade Kalina turned her head and froze. 100 meters from the road, inside the ring formed by tanks and armored cars, in the light of searchlights, lay a huge mechanical arm with inscriptions Soyuz AG. A little further on, other fragments of the Soyuz AG could be seen.
Whew!
Comrade Kalina said indignantly,
What scoundrel did it? My poor fourth robot!
Even I can't fix it now.
Comrade Agage said quietly and lost consciousness. And at this heartbreaking moment, some Red Army soldier with sergeant epaulets jumped out onto the road and began angrily shouting to the ladies to drive on. Comrade Kalina leaned out the window and backed.
Where? From this time!
The soldier replied something indecent. Comrade Kalina bared her teeth and was about to start a verbal brawl, but suddenly remembered Comrade Ivanov's stern demand not to stop anywhere on the way to Evangelion. And only once again looking at the broken Soyuz AG, she again moved the track forward. At Evangelion, at the entrance to the main building, Comrade Kazin met the truck with Comrade Kalina and Comrade Agage. Behind his back, Comrade Kazin hid a bucket of watermelon rinds. Having slapped Comrade Agage in the face, Comrade Kalina brought her to her senses and left the truck with her.
Marina,
Comrade Kazin said after the greeting.
Comrade Ivanov asked me to tell you that he is waiting for you and Rima in his office. Okay, we are going.
Comrade Kalina said calmly and wanted to ask something about the Soyuz AG, but Comrade Kazin hurried and ran around the corner. She grunted and asked herself.
Where did he run?
Comrade Kalina wanted to spy on Comrade Kazin, but Comrade Agage, eager to find out the truth about the destruction of the Soyuz AG, pulled her by the sleeve towards the entrance. The elevator gladly lifted them, and soon they had already stopped in front of the door to the office of their beloved boss. Comrade Agage, who pulled ahead a little, knocked on the door. "Come in," severely allowed the voice of Comrade Ivanov. As soon as the ladies followed this invitation, Comrade Ivanov pressed the communication button on his desk and said, "Call the pilots here." The gloomy tone and appearance of the boss made Comrade Kalina and Comrade Agage bite their tongues, and they silently froze in front of the table at attention. And then Sanya, Anka and Raya entered the office. Sanya's cheeks had almost returned to their normal color. He himself looked very proud, and at the same time continued to radiate his dissatisfaction with Anka and Raya. Anka and Raya responded to Sanya in the same way. Comrade Kalina dared to ask quietly,
And where is Tola?
"Tola has a nervous breakdown!" Comrade Ivanov barked and slammed his fist on the table. "He is constantly crying and therefore sent to a sanatorium! Line up, my damn soldiers!" They lined up in one line. Comrade Ivanov left the table and walked past all 5 subordinates, looking into everyone's eyes. Stopping in front of Comrade Kalina, Comrade Ivanov put his hands behind his back and said, "Let's start with you, Comrade Kalina."
Comrade Ivanov,
she murmured.
I was on the test, but I didn't drink. Even a caller tried to seduce me.
Comrade Ivanov sniffed the air and said, "You didn't drink, you say? Kindergarten number 8, group peaches! Hand over your weapons!"
For what?
Comrade Kalina cried, clutching her submachine gun to her as the most expensive.
What happened? Tell me.
I want to know what happened! Comrade Agevich, how did you allow it? Comrade Agevich immediately fell to her knees and hit her forehead on the floor, pleading.
Don't order me to be shot, Comrade Commander!
He calmed down and sighed and said, "Get up, Rimma. I don't blame you." She slowly got up. Looking at his son, Comrade Ivanov said to him, "Son, why did you gouge the new Soyuz so much? It cost the Soviet people crazy money!" Comrade Kalina and Comrade Agevich looked at Sanya with round eyes. Comrade Kalina's submachine gun fell out of her hands. A shot rang out. The bullet shattered the flashing beacon above the telephone booth, and the cartridge case rolled under the table. Moreover, no one noticed this incident. Sanya just smirked and replied,
I was following orders, sir.
"I told you to just stop it!"
An officer is not making excuses, sir.
"Go into the corner!" Comrade Ivanov shouted and pointed his finger at one of the corners of the office. Raya pressed her hands to her cheeks and exclaimed,
For what in the corner? Oops, it's right. It serves him right.
Responding only with a haughty grin, Sanya saluted his father and marched to the indicated place. "Now to you!" Comrade Ivanov said, hovering over Anka and Raya. "What the diamond whims for on the battlefield? Why the hell there were the wars I don't want and I won't?"
Ha!
Anka answered in her bold manner.
You'd be grabbed by the bull.
Without finishing, Anka broke off and began to whistle. Comrade Ivanov wanted to continue the debriefing, but then a siren sounded throughout the Untergrunker. "Again?" Comrade Ivanov was indignant and grabbed the phone. "What happened? Attack?" Comrade Ivanov began to listen to the phone, and Comrade Kalina went up to the desk and defiantly placing her weapon on the desk said,
Well, what? Can I go to kindergarten?
Comrade Ivanov silently waved his hand in protest, not removing the phone from his ear.
No, I'm leaving.
Comrade Kalina proudly uttered and, turning around, walked towards the exit from the office. Comrade Ivanov covered the microphone with his palm and said, "Wait, Comrade Kalina."
What?
Not too politely responded she, stopping and turning only her head.
I'm out of combat, aren't I?
Comrade Ivanov finally put the receiver back and said, "Let's postpone the formalities for a while."
For a while. So after the fight, I still have to wind the term in a kindergarten. No, I'd better go right away. The sooner you get into jail, the sooner you get out of there.
Well, I'm declaring an amnesty.
Only the parliament can declare an amnesty in our country.
In what case, you're pardoned.
And only the president manages the pardon.
Wait, what the hell is the president in the Soviet Union? And to the dollar, you! Go to your kindergarten! We'll do great without you, Comrade Kalina! Shouting always, Comrade Ivanov grabbed the submachine gun from the table and ran out of the office, giving orders as he went. "Follow me! Let's start the fight!"
The task is clear!
Comrade Agevich responded and, putting her hands on the girl's shoulders, looked at the back of Sanya's head. Comrade Kalina shook her head in confusion and suddenly rushed after Comrade Ivanov, shouting as he walked.
Comrade Ivanov, wait for me!
Sanya,
Comrade Agevich called.
I'm repressed!
Sanya answered.
Without the official removal of repressions, I will not leave my place.
Anka whistled, and then she said,
I won't mind, even if he lives in this corner now. What, Ryan and I can do it on our own?
In view of the sharp lack of time, Comrade Agevich did not object and carried Anka and Raya along with her. Raya was the last to run out and gave Sanya a look of sadness. Columbus! Komitonov gave a name to the Sam flying in the distance, looking through the periscope and squinting at the rising sun.
Let me fight too, please!
Comet Kalina pleaded once again, fussing around. Komitonov took his eyes off the eyepiece for a second and looked at Comet Kalina, and then again began to follow the Sam. Comet Kalina put her hands on her hips and looked at her boss' chair. She resolutely went to the chair and sat down there. Pulling a pen out of her pocket, she began to nibble on it. Hearing what the engineers began to laugh at something, Komitonov again broke away from observation and looked around. Seeing Comet Kalina in his chair, Komitonov allowed himself to be indignant. Are you pardoning me or what?
I'm in your place because you took my place.
She shrugged. Komitonov, who lost the verbal battle, moved away from the periscope and with a gesture allowed Comet Kalina to take her combat post. She beamed in an instant and jumped up to the periscope, habitually clinging to it. The Sam Columbus went down. He looked a bit like the Sam that Anka and Sanya defeated on the day they met. This one also had huge caterpillars instead of legs. On the powerful arms was fixed on a kind of sword that stuck out forward, and behind the back of the Sam there was some kind of suspicious pipe. As soon as they touched the surface, the caterpillar tracks began to move, and the Sam rushed forward, knowing a terrible mark on Soviet soil.
And briskly.
Comet Kalina estimated. When Comet Agevich appeared in the command center, seeing Comet Kalina at the periscope, Comet Agevich grinned and reported to her.
Rust and Gallion are at your disposal, ma'am.
What about Small?
Comet Agevich looked in the direction of Komitonov and said,
Small said that without the official removal of repressions, he would not leave his corner.
Komitonov waved his hand and said, Nothing, comrades. It won't hurt to prick his pride a little. Our girls will cope, and it will be a good lesson to him. Comrade Kalina also looked at Komitonov, but she did not comment on his decision and gave an order.
Raise the Soyuzes to the surface!
The elevators had just begun to fulfill their function, and Comrade Kalina, habitually bending in front of the periscope at an angle of 90 degrees, suddenly exclaimed,
Where is it go? Oh my Kremlin! It's rushing straight to the secret passage to Vendegronka!
Komitonov took the pen that Comrade Kalina had graciously left for him and said worriedly, Counterintelligence failed us again, but I hope the guards didn't forget to close the barrier after you passed. Comrade Agevich chuckled once more and voiced her opinion.
But in any case, the Sam will not crawl through. Where?
And when the Sam stopped, took out something similar to a very large bomb from the pouch on the belt, and bending down a lot, deftly threw the bomb into the pipe behind its back. A shot rang out, and the very large bomb, as if from a mortar, flew along a hinged trajectory straight to that secret entrance with the barrier. The thundering violent explosion seemed to shake the whole of Muscovy city. Only black and white stripes remained of the barrier, and at the place of the secret passage, a hole of such unimaginable dimensions was formed that even any Sam could easily pass through it, which the Sam immediately set out to do.
We have an uninvited guest!
Comrade Kalina cried out and even straightened up, turning the handles of the periscope and adjusting it to observe the interior of the cave.
Stop the rise of the Soyuzes!
What happened?
Raya asked over the radio.
The Sam is breaking into our cave! Get ready to take the fight here!
The lifts went back, and Columbus rushed to discover all the secrets of the star. Inside the artificial cave, Sam pulled off the embankment, along which the road ran, threw another bomb into the pipe, and fired at random into the distance. Luckily, only an abandoned construction site was destroyed by this explosion. Stop! epic squeal was heard, and 2 pigs ran away from the fire that had arisen.
Oh no, my wonderful pigs!
Cried Comet Cousin, chasing the animals.
What the hell are pigs on the battlefield?
Comet Kalina was indignant. What pigs? Cried Comet On-Off.
Pigs!
Comet Kalina reported, turning the periscope and licking her lips.
Appetizing pigs!
And when Anka and Raya finally joined the battle, Anka leaned out from behind the hangar and began firing in short bursts, covering Raya as she ran across into the smoky area. But these shells turned out to be only PS for Sam Columbus. Deftly swinging its swords, the Sam managed to beat them back and redirect them into the walls, while continuing to move forward.
Dumb Ninja Turtle!
Anka shouted angrily and ceased fire, since Raya had already taken a position in the smoke. Sam Columbus immediately took advantage of the respite and loaded a new bomb into its pipe. But Raya immediately responded from her rifle, however slightly missing and hitting the bomb on a tangent. The bomb, propelled by a sniper rifle bullet, flew up and exploded on the ceiling. Half of the light bulbs went out again, and a terrible hole was formed, into which soil fell, pieces of shredding top-secret Soviet mounting foam, and in addition, what Sam with the tank, what tried to get here with acid fell out of its hole, collapsed on his chest, but Sam shuddered the cave.
Can I take the grenade launcher?
Hank asked and took aim.
Why are you asking?
Kalina replied.
But now just shoot right.
Why are you with me as with a little one?
Anka muttered, and after giving a short burst, put the machine gun against the wall and rushed into the hangar. At this time, in Comet Ivanov's office, Sanya still continued to stand in the corner and listen to the sounds of the fierce battle penetrating here, as the headquarters shook as if it were an earthquake. He grunted and fought aloud.
Are we not going to call me for help at all?
Turning his head, Sanya looked at the phone. When he walked over to the desk and dialed the command center number. Commander Ivanov speaking. Comet Ivanov answered quickly.
It's small.
Son, call later, please. We have a fight going on here. Staring in surprise at the speaker, from which short beeps were heard, Sanya suddenly frowned angrily and walked out of the office with a decisive step. Meanwhile, Anka took the grenade launcher and bravely jumped out with it into the line of sight of the Sam. The Sam again took out a bomb from the pouch, but this time Rai did not hesitate and with a well-aimed shot knocked the bomb out of the Sam's hand. Dropping to the floor next to its truck, the bomb exploded, rocking Sam Columbus. It seemed to Anka that some of the fragments flew up to her and get into the barrel of the grenade launcher, so she had to hesitate and shake out the unfortunate fragments. The Sam did not miss this chance, and sharply waving his left hand, suddenly threw the sword in the direction of the Soyuz AC. The sword turned out to be attached to a chain. Cutting through the air, the sword pierced right in the grenade launcher. A terrible explosion dropped the Soyuz AC, severely damaging its frontal armor. Having fallen, the Soyuz AC interrupted its steam pipeline, and bite clubs enveloped it. The chain tightened, and the sword returned to the Sam's hand. And when Sanya opened the door to the command center.
Hey you! How about me?
He cried from the threshold. Comet Ivanov and Comet Kalina, who were looking for the periscope together, somehow managing to divide it, turned around for a second, but then returned to their previous business.
Gotta get up!
Comet Kalina shouted.
Back off! Never, never!
Anka replied.
I still have 5 whole minutes! But your armor is damaged.
Sanya became angry and barked.
I'm the Soyuz AB pilot, Sanya Ivanov Des!
And what? Comet Ivanov asked calmly.
What do you mean and what that? So, in order not to rehabilitate me, you are ready to even send the girls alone into battle?
Feeling the incredible reproach in these words of his son, Kometonov looked at Sanya and then turned his gaze to Kometa Gage. When he nodded to her and said, "Prepare to serve me," forcing the Soyuz AC to stand up, Anka picked up her weapon and charged forward, firing as she went. Sam Columbus, continuing to demonstrate its dexterity, again easily beat off all the shells flying at him.
Got you!
Shouted Raya, leading the Soyuz AA out of the smoke.
You blocked my line of fire!
Wait, just a little bit more and you won't have to shoot!
Having ceased to fire within 2 steps of the Sam, Anka swung and tried to hit the Sam with the bayonet knife. But the Sam also repulsed his attack, immediately hitting the Soyuz AC on the right shoulder and cutting it in half. Steam gushed from the broken server. Using a body twist, Anka struck the Sam with a blow with the blood, which broke through its defense and hit it right in the head. But despite the terrible dent formed from this, Sam Columbus contrived and poked the AC in the stomach with the tip of the blade. The explosion damaged armor gave way easily, and the Sam's blade popped out of the Soyuz's back, and the AC, which had already swung to strike, went limp and collapsed to the floor. The Sam began to go around the defeated Soyuz.
Got
Came the chorus of Kometionov, Komet Kalina, and Raya over the radio.
I'm alive, damn it!
Anka answered angrily, unfastening herself from the chair in the dim cockpit, the back wall of which now served as a ceiling. Here Raya, having thought of something, rushed forward. The Sam again put its hand into the pouch, but this time Raya did not dare to forestall its shot, as she was afraid that Anka might have been hit by the explosion. Moreover, nearby Comet Cousin was still rushing after his pigs, and therefore the new bomb flew freely from the pipe behind the back of the Sam. But apparently, the damage to the Sam's head still did not pass it in vain, and therefore the bomb hit straight into the parking lot, where the vehicles of the Star workers were now parked, including Comet Cousin's bicycle. Naturally, this explosion smashed not only the bicycle, but also severely damaged the building, and also broke through several floors that were under the parking lot. Cracks also appeared on the walls of the command center, but the portrait of Stalin, securely fastened to the wall with anchor bolts, this time fortunately withstood. Having reached the lying wreckage of the acid Sam, Raya suddenly threw her rifle in Sam's direction and ripped the tank from the back of the acid robot, in which something else gurgled, rushed forward with it.
Where are you going? We found the weapon!
Cried Comet Kalina.
It is useless! The Sam beats bullets off!
But why did you throw your weapon forward?
It's my plan!
The Sam even stopped in surprise and reached into the pouch again. Fumbling in it, the Sam pulled out only its empty hand. These seconds were enough for Raya to run up closer and raise the tank in the desire to bring it down on the Sam. When the tank began to fall on the Sam, it threw up its hands with swords and cut the tank into 3 parts, immediately finding itself all doused with acid. A terrible hissing gripped the worried Sam, and its body began to dissolve. Raya began to retreat with her back to the rifle and suddenly stepped on her fuel oil pipeline and collapsed heavily to the floor. The Sam, who now looked like a snowman on a hot day, suddenly drove towards the rifle, which Raya was only 3 steps away from.
Rest!
Comet Kalina shouted over the radio.
Rest!
Wait a second!
Raya replied in a half-conscious state from shaking, feeling herself that she would not have time to raise her robot before the automation stopped her boiler.
Give me a sec.
Rust! Yelled Sanya, finally running out of the hangar on his Soyuz. Noticing the Zeus AB, Sam Columbus swung his hand and drew his right sword at it, which had already melted pretty well. The chain snapped and the blade whistled past the Zeus AB and hit the ruins under the former parking lot. Something inside exploded and sparkled. Lights flickered in the command center where Komitagevich hadn't returned yet. The oil pumping station is off! Third engineer suddenly exclaimed in alarm. No supply voltage! Fuel oil pressure drops! As the sales AP switched to onboard stock of fuel oil!
Give me the key!
Comrade Kalina shouted uncompromisingly, staring at Comet Ivanov. Without Komitagevich, I have no right! He murmured. In addition to everything, at what moment Komitagevich's voice rang out over the speakerphone.
Where's the fire in the first section of switch gears? I stay to put out!
Comrade Kalina again clung to the periscope and shouted with incredible hope.
Sanya!
I'm attacking!
He replied. The Sam reached for his weapon lying on the ground and lifted it with one hand. Sanya was only a miserable 50 meters from Sam Columbus when a shot from the rifle shook the area. The barrel of the rifle was thrown up strongly, and the wrist, even with a crack, was twisted at the right hand of the Sam. But the solid projectile, which hit almost point blank and left a gaping tunnel on the frontal armor of the Zeus AP, also did its job. Second engineer shouted.
The Zeus AP smoke exhauster has turned off! The boiler will stop for protection!
Comrade Kalin let go of the periscope, rushed to Comrade Ivanov's desk, and growled with a brutal expression on her face.
Give me the damn key, Genich! I'll be able to put it in and turn it without Agevich!
Sanya managed to swing and hit the Sam with the mace only once. Afterward, the Soyuz quickly weakened and fell to its knees. But Sanya continued to pull the controls, growling and mentally seeing how he was tearing the Sam to pieces. Sam Columbus dropped the rifle and with the tip of its left sword began to methodically peck at the Zeus AP, trying to hit its viewing glass. The armor was shattering, the tip left terrible gouges. Each blow could be the last for small. And so, when the sword hit the glazed viewing slot, covering it with a network of cracks, and the Sam swung for the final blow, the Zeus AP came to life again. Grasping the blade with its right hand, the Zeus AP burned it aside and lifted itself from its knees. Sam Columbus began to back away, but the Zeus AP grabbed the Sam by some protrusion on his chest, ignoring the fact that the acid began to corrode the hand and powerfully hit Sam's head with the fist, tearing it off and throwing it somewhere deeper. When the Zeus AP grabbed the Sam's hand with the sword and tore it out of the body, something terrible was happening in the cockpit at that moment, because Sanya looked as if he wanted to bite off a piece from the Sam personally. Having torn Sam Columbus' torso apart in half a minute, the Zeus AP raised the Sam's undercarriage and with a habitual movement threw it on the ground, on which, unfortunately for Komitagevich, the fragments of the acid Sam lay. There was an explosion and silence finally filled the cave. Slowly moving away from the foggy periscope, Comet Kalina looked at Comet Ivanov and exhaled.
Smooth. To the hangar.
To be continued.